Thank you all for coming out tonight to the regular business meeting of the Radnor Township School District. Our first order of business will be our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll report that the board met on 2 occasions in executive session, September 5th and September 26th. We discussed matters of legal and staffing. Next will be our report from our injured student. Andrew, what's the story, man?
Hello, everyone. So it's hard to believe that it's almost been a month since we have come back to school. But however, we have a lot to update you on tonight. So first off, tomorrow during community period, student government will have its first LM planning meeting to discuss the themes for each grade. And secondly, on Thursday during community period, Radnor High School will be hosting its annual fall activities fair. And if you don't know what the activities fair is, it is where students will have an opportunity to visit and sign up for different clubs and groups. And I will be representing student government and the Annenberg Science Club. Moving on to the topic of academics. 13 Radnor seniors were named 2018 National Merit Semifinalists, and they will be recognized later in the evening. Another great accomplishment that happened over the summer was when junior Priya Ganesh and Amelia Sagatita attended the Future Business Leaders of America National Leadership Conference in California, and they will be recognized later as well, too. And so congrats to the students on their great academic accomplishments, and get excited for the PSATs on October 11th.
Scoot on over. Well, the start of the school year also means the start of fall sports. Teams started preseason August 14th, August 7th for football. I'll keep you. And have been working hard since. Boys soccer, coming off a great season last year, have started 5-2-1 after beating Harriton in a huge upset last night. The football team is hoping to continue the school's winning ways against Harriton this Thursday night under the lights. Sophomore Canon Carucci represented Radnor girls tennis at the Central League singles tournament. She placed 4th. Finally, senior Evie Bond and junior Zach Taylor were invited to represent Radnor crew at the U.S. World Championships in Sarasota, Florida. On September 18th, the renovated courtyard was officially unveiled. Students have been using it for studying and eating since. It's a beautiful space that shows how in this school, in our climate that we have at the school, if students work hard to plan and fundraise something like this, results will come, and it's a real tangible way of seeing that. I think it's great. The courtyard was designed by the high school civil engineering class, and the courtyard is by students for students. The student body thanks the help of countless individuals for helping to make this happen. So thank you for having us tonight. Hopefully next month, I'll be a little better than my current state. We'll see. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Next, the report from our superintendent. Ken.
Thank you, Mr. Falcone, and welcome, everyone. So good to see so many people here, and we'll have an opportunity to recognize our students, our semifinalists, in a moment as well, so it's great to have you here as well. We are off to a great start this school year. It's hard to believe that it is now week 4. Time is flying. I don't know if the students feel like they've already been back 4 weeks. I'm not getting too many looks from the students about it, but it's hard to believe how quickly the time is going. The first item I wanted to share was one of the items that we have on the agenda this evening. And one of the item agendas is that we have the vote for the school board on a collective bargaining agreement with our teachers. That agreement is for the next 5 years. I want to thank our teacher leadership for approaching the school board at the beginning of the summer. I want to thank the school board for all that they have done in the reasonableness that both the teachers and the school board came at this. I want to thank the board leadership for all that they brought to this. I think it was Mr. Falcone and Mr. McBride from the teachers who both described this as a new normal for Radnor, an opportunity for both sides to be reasonable in looking at establishing both the stability and sustainability for the district. So I appreciate all that everyone has done to make this happen and bring this opportunity tonight. Mr. Falcone, if you wanted to share anything.
Sure, I would echo kind of everything that Mr. Batchelor's just said. This is a really good thing, we believe, for our district, if for no other reason than we were able to have an open, honest, and very, very productive dialogue with our teachers union. And we are, I can't think of two organizations that are more inherently aligned than a school board and its teachers union for really the good of what we are here for, which is our students in our district. So I'm very appreciative that we were able as a board to be a part of that discussion, that it was able to be so productive, and I will echo again that I hope this sets the tone for future discussions, future negotiations, as boards move forward long after this one departs and union leadership changes. This, we hope, will continue and be sustaining in this district as the way to get things done so that we can share a vision and share an aligned goal.
Thank you, Mr. Falcone. And I know there will be opportunity when this is an item on the agenda for approval for other board members, and opportunity during public comment as well. The next item I want to just quickly mention is something that Olivia and Andrew spoke of, and we have pictures of it. I think we've got Andrew and maybe Olivia in some of those pictures as well, but just wanted to mention again the courtyard that they talked about, because it really was not only the student leadership within the high school that came together to change the courtyard. It was a vision of the students. They used and went to the support of students within the high school to help design, to help use some of their skills that they were learning in their classes to help design the changes. And then it was all aspects, from administration, from operations, so many different aspects of the community. The district staff came together to help make that renovation possible for the students, as well as the support from so many different groups, whether it was our PTO, whether it was our Education Foundation, and it gets dangerous when you start listing groups because I know I'm leaving people off, but so many who donated to this and donated to the cause to help have that renovation happen. And they had their ribbon cutting, as Andrew was saying, just, was it 2 weeks ago? They had the ribbon cutting. So those students are able to use that new courtyard space. And I like the fact that one of the things they included in it was an outdoor classroom area as well. Fortunately, it's been probably too hot the last few days to be out there too much. The next thing I just wanted to mention is that our Government Relations Committee spent a lot of time in their last meeting discussing the upcoming ballot question. So for board members, I just want to share that the Government Relations Committee did discuss and look at the upcoming ballot question. At that Government Relations Committee, we discussed our concern for how that ballot question could be opening up our Commonwealth for future legislation that could be changing how we tax and the control that the district and the board has over the taxes to support the school district. And so because of that, we're very concerned about this ballot question, and are encouraging our families to vote no. And I'll turn it over for a moment to Amy, the chair of Government Relations, just you wanted to mention, and Mr. Petiti, who works with Mrs. Goldman on that, to just share some quick facts about it.
Hopefully many of you in the community are aware of the effort that our board made recently, earlier in this school year, when we passed a resolution, not this school year, last school year, when we passed a board resolution opposing legislation, Senate Bill 76, or anything like Senate Bill 76. Senate Bill 76 is designed in its current form to take away the ability of school districts to levy school property taxes. You can't hear me? Thanks, Roberta. And on the one hand, taking away local property taxes may seem like a good thing, but in essence, it's a switch, a tax shift, where instead of getting revenue to run our schools through property taxes, there is a proposed dramatic increase in the personal income tax and the sales and usage tax, and many items that have not previously been taxed will be taxed. doctor's visits, all kinds of things, medication, all kinds of things, haircuts, tutors, whatever it is, they would be levying taxes on those. But the biggest problem with something like Senate Bill 76, and we were not alone as a district in passing a resolution against this, many districts across the Commonwealth are opposed to it as well, is that we would lose the ability to have control over the funding of our schools. And if you've been following what's been going on in the Pennsylvania legislature, you know that, again, for the second time in 2 years, they are unable to pass a budget. They are running into a cash crunch. And for those districts who are at the mercy of state funds to run their schools, it would cause a significant problem. We would essentially lose our cash flow, and we are, in keeping with our resolution opposing Senate Bill 76, asking the community to pay attention to the ballot question that you will find on your ballot this November 7th. Hopefully everybody will be going to the polls to vote this November 7th. But you will find a question on the ballot that's very misleading. And the question is there as a result of the passage by the General Assembly of House Bill 1285. The Constitution needs to be amended in order to enact something like Senate Bill 76. So this is a step in that process. And the question will ask you in very strong legalese if you would like to have potentially 100% exclusion, homestead exclusion on your taxes. It doesn't tell you, though, where the money to replace that is coming from. So we are launching a campaign to ask the community, as a follow-up to our position on House Senate Bill 76, to vote no to that referendum question. And we hope we'll have your support. Mr. Petiti may want to go into a detail or two about the campaign that the communications office is launching around this, but please spread the word to everyone in the community who cares about local control of our schools that this question will be on the ballot, and it's paving the way to legislation that would really put our schools in peril, and we hope that you'll vote no to it.
I think Ms. Goldman covered it pretty thoroughly. Just keep your eyes on our website and for more information on how you can help out.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Goldman. Thank you, Mr. Petiti. And again, there will be more information, as Mr. Petiti said, about that on our website, and also sharing some other information from the board. I also want to just mention quickly on the next slide just some upcoming events. It is obviously a busy time for the district, but I want to highlight just a couple of pieces with some upcoming focus groups that we've been sharing with our faculty and our parents as well, and both for our students also as we look at some of our district goals that we've established for this year. So with that, I will turn it back over to Mr. Falcone.
Thank you. So the next segment of our meeting here is probably the best part of all our meetings. It's our time when we can recognize our students for their incredible achievements. So I'll look to Mrs. Stern for this recognition.
Sure. Mr. Falcone, you're going to join me? Great. So I think what we'll, is this microphone on? Yeah, so I think what we'll do is I'll read all the names, and if everyone can come up and just hold your applause till the end, that would be great. And Mr. Falcone will hand out your certificates. So, Radnor High School seniors, Neil Chan, Jessica Doherty, Andrew Dahan, Philip Gilbert, Daniel Goldberg, Niles Huang, Cameron Karapavani, Alexander Leonardi, Amelia Sagatita, Sophie Samaha, Charlie Sotheby, Lin Yang, and Choi Zha were recently named 2018 National Merit Scholarship semifinalists by the National Merit Scholarship Competition. The students join approximately 16,000 high school seniors from across the United States and are eligible for approximately 7,500 scholarships worth more than $32 million. Approximately 1.6 million juniors in more than 22,000 high schools entered the 2018 National Merit Scholarship Program by taking the 2016 preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship qualifying test. The nationwide pool of semifinalists, representing less than 1% of U.S. high school seniors, includes the highest scoring entrants in each state. To become a finalist, the semifinalist in his or her high school must submit a detailed scholarship application in which they provide information about the semifinalist's academic record, participation in school and community activities, demonstrated leadership abilities, employment, and honors and awards received. From the approximately 16,000 semifinalists, about 15,000 are expected to advance to the finalist level. They will be notified of this designation in February 2018. The superintendent, along with the board and the Radnor community, congratulates these students, many of whom I know, their parents and teachers on their outstanding accomplishment. So we're going to read those names. Neil Chan, Jessica Doherty, Andrew Dahan, Philip Gilbert, Daniel Goldberg, Niles Huang, Cameron Karapabani, Alexander Leonardi, Amelia Sagatita, Sophie Samaha, Charlie Sotheby, Lin Yang, and Choi Zha. So that's Cameron. Oh, Philip has a slang. Philip, come on over. Daniel's right there. Niles is right here.
Oh,
Cameron. Is Alexander? Alex is here. Oh, Alex is here. Emily's here. Emily here. See, it's hard with all these things. Choi? Is Choi here? Yeah, Choi, come over here. And if you guys stand all here. And Ling. Oh, I recognize Ling. Okay. Oh, wait, put Jessica in the front. She's short. Come on, Jess. Run a little bit. We got somebody else. Oh, you got another one. Who's in the back there? Michael. You got her? Ready?
Okay. Good.
Oh, proud parents.
Parents could email Michael Petiti if they'd like a copy of the picture. Right, Mr. Petiti?
That's
What?
right.
You get an electronic copy, you can email it to you. Okay.
And then, kids, why don't you come through the line? The board usually likes to congratulate you. Yeah, the board will want to shake your hand.
Congrats. Congrats. Good to see you. Congrats. Good to see you. Congrats. Congratulations. 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 Congrats. Congrats. Hey, congrats, guys. Congrats. Congrats. Hey, congrats. It's good to see you. Congrats. Good to see you.
Congratulations again to the students. What an incredible accomplishment.
Again, congratulations to those students. Before we move to our public comment, I just wanted to make one other announcement. I had contacted all the parents in our community today to just share with them the very tragic and sad news that a 2015 graduate, Alexandra Alex Austin, had tragically passed away in a car accident. We shared this information because Alex's, I believe it's her 5 siblings, are all still in the district. Our high school has shared this information, has had grief counselors available for students and staff to support them, and that we just would ask that we just take a moment of silence for Alex's family and all that they're going through. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Batchelor. Next, we will move to public comment. At this portion of the meeting, we encourage our citizens to come forward and address the board for items on the agenda or other topics related to Radnor Township School District business. We ask that you please print your name on the sign-in sheet at the table in the back and clearly state your name, your street address, and your topic to be addressed when you come forward to the microphone. Individual comment is limited to not more than 4 minutes, and that's per our board policy. We would ask that you please respect that. Should you be unable to attend the board meeting, you can submit your comment by email to boardquestions@rtsd.org or in writing to Mr. Michael Petiti, Radnor Township School District, 135 South Wayne Avenue, Wayne, Pennsylvania, 19087. I'll note that our administrators will review questions the Wednesday following the meeting, and then questions will be answered at the following month's meeting. Is there any public comment? Dr. Winters. How you doing?
Just fine, thank you.
Great.
I would just like to comment that today is National Voter Registration Day, and our seniors who were just here have left, but I would hope if they have not registered to vote, or if there are parents listening who have changed their address or wish to change anything with their party affiliation, or perhaps notify their college students, just go to the votespa.com website, and you can change and do anything you wish to do, including ask for an absentee ballot. So those are all things that you can do in today's National Voter Registration Day, and with elections coming up in November, it's important that everybody who is eligible to vote is registered. So thank you for that, and I would also like to commend those students, and particularly there were two, Niles and Sophie, whom I've worked with over the summer when they had an internship with the Radnor Conservancy, and we worked together with the League of Women Voters to work on rejuvenating recycling in Radnor Township. And I think you'll be hearing more about their efforts as time goes on. So I think it's wonderful that they not only have the ability to do what they need to do as scholars, but also have a commitment to do something for our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Winters, for that important information. Welcome, Mrs. Sherry.
Thank you. Judy Sherry, Governor's Circle, Newtown Square. Board members, please use your imagination for a minute. Imagine that the door to the middle school library is built too low, and a number of students bang their heads on the door as they enter and exit the library. Some of these whacks are insignificant, but a number are subconcussive blows, and some result in full-blown concussions. To correct this problem, would the school board and the administration do nothing? Would the school board require all students who want to study in the library to wear helmets, believing that helmets would at least protect skulls from fracturing, even though they do little to protect the brain itself? Would the board post a sign next to the door that states, "Heads down"? Or would the board just eliminate the door or raise it? The decision seems to be almost a no-brainer because the door has no political constituency, and therefore the board can easily act in the best interest of children. It's a different story altogether with eliminating the effects of tackling in football, despite the mounting, relentless, and compelling evidence of the permanent damage to children's brains caused by the estimated 500 to 600 head hits year after year at a time when the brains of children are developing. And despite the fact that the entire state of Vermont is banning tackling in middle school football. Radnor school board members and board candidates, afraid of political repercussions and losing votes from powerful special interest sports groups, alumni, and booster clubs, have remained silent on this issue, an issue that needs and demands public discussion and debate. There is a lack of political courage here that is stunning. I cringe hearing board members say it's all about the children when it's not all about the children. Let's look at spending priorities. The imbalance in Radnor football spending compared to other sports is obvious again this year, both with the listing of coaches' salaries on the September agenda and the budgeted items on the business office's August monthly comparison report. Number one, there are 8 football coaches, which more than doubles the number of coaches in any other sport. Number two, the salaries of the top 4 football coaches, including the head coach who makes almost $10,000, doubles the salaries of coaches in other sports, like field hockey. And this year, at over $138,000, football's budget reflects an increase of $24,000 over last year, and more than triples that of any other sport. Budgets reflect priorities. Now let's look at the mounting, overwhelming, and compelling evidence regarding the lasting effects of football and brain injuries. In July, it was announced that chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, was found in 110 of 111 brains of deceased former NFL players. And just this past month, it was discovered that the former 27-year-old New England Patriot, Aaron Hernandez, had significant brain damage when he committed suicide in prison while serving a sentence for homicide. 2 NPR stories. The first on Marketplace, September 22nd. Youth football participation has declined about 15% since 2009. USA Football runs a Heads Up football program that teaches young players to lead with their shoulders. Football historian Matt Cheney said, coaches have tried that since the 1890s. Quote, it's impossible in a forward-colliding, forward-leveraged sport to keep your head out of this, Cheney said. This is a collision-kill game. September 19th, football can damage kids' brains even if they don't get concussions. Boston University's Chronic Traumatic Encephalopathy Center's new study states, kids who start playing tackle football before the age of 12 are at a much higher risk of developing behavioral and emotional troubles as adults. Adults who play tackle football before age 12 are 2 to 3 times more likely to have significantly clinical, meaningful depression symptoms and are not able to effectively control their behaviors and impulses. Dr. Robert Stern states, we're really concerned about, and what I think people really need to start being concerned about, is this exposure to what we refer to as subconcussive hits, these hits that don't necessarily result in the symptom right then, but children can get hundreds of them a year. Quote, we do all kinds of crazy things to make sure that our children are healthy, and then we drop them off at a field and put these helmets on and say, hit your head over and over again, 500 or 600 times per session, per season, at a time when their brains are growing and developing. September 22nd, here are quotes from Bob Costas, a respected sports commentator for over 30
Mr. President,
years.
the speaker is at 5.5 minutes now.
Mrs. Sherry, if you would try and conclude your comments, we would appreciate
I
that.
have one more page, so that should be perfect. Thank you.
No, so actually, you're 90 seconds over your time. We'd like you to conclude your comments.
As I said, I have only one more page, so it should be
Understood. I'd like you to finish that thought, please, and be done. Thanks.
Thank you. There is also evidence that the earlier you start playing football, and participation is way down because parents are concerned about it, if you start playing when you are 12, 13, 14 years old, that the long-range effects are apt to be even greater. Evidence is evidence, Costas adds, adding that unless they can improve helmets to the point where they protect the brain from rattling around like a pickle inside a jar, football could go the way of the Roman circus. People watch it, but don't let their kids play. This year's response to my inquiry about tackling in Radnor Middle School football is that
Mrs.
RMS
Sherry, if you
football
can please wrap
is
up your comments.
full
Thank you.
contact football. We separate the players into 2 teams, and there is also additional information. If the problem were as simple as banging your head on a door, it would be quickly solved. But there is and has been a large and organized political constituency behind
Mrs.
football.
Sherry, I would ask you to please conclude your comments.
There must be a tipping point, Mr. Falcone.
The tipping point is you're not
Hopefully,
respecting our
with the
policies.
leadership of the superintendent, Mr. Batchelor, that people here will find the courage to address this issue in a meaningful way, protecting the long-term interests of children under their care. Thank you.
Debbie Singer,
Hi, Debbie.
Villanova.
How are you?
Hi. Well, I agree with what Mrs. Sherry's saying. I want to thank the board for trying their best to institute your 4-minute public comment. Thanks very much.
Welcome.
Hello, my name is Ed Ruby. I'm a social studies teacher at Radnor High School. I came here just to say thank you tonight. Thank you to the board, thank you to the administrators, and thank you to the union for coming together on this great 5-year agreement. It is so appreciated. I can't tell you how much appreciation there is among the teachers. Our morale is through the roof after hearing the news. We didn't see it coming, but we greatly appreciate it. Let me add some other things, just real quick. I know how much time and effort was put into this. I know the challenges, the finances you have to deal with, the educational aspects of it, and the dealing with family and security we're talking about. I worked many years at Verizon before becoming a teacher. I've been involved in labor negotiations, many that didn't go very well, and I know what the aftermath is of some of those negotiations. What happened here with everybody involved is something that, you know, pays benefits long beyond the contract. I tell people every day, I feel like I won the Powerball coming here. Thank you so much for all your effort. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ruby. Mrs. Spurtle, welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Cindy Spurtle, 106 Valley Forge Terrace, Wayne. I have my first question is on a comment that was made prior to public comment, and that is that questions that were asked in last month's meeting would be answered. When is that going to happen? Or if it is going to happen in this meeting, will there be a specific time indicated so we will know that answers to our questions are coming? I had a question on the collective bargaining agreement, which has been agreed to over the last couple weeks, maybe months, but part of that question was answered. The other part of my question is the cost on the benefit package. Exactly what additional costs will be added for the benefits, which I believe would be the pension fund and health care. There may be a few more benefits. But for budgeting purposes, my guess is that you have a ballpark figure for that. And that would help in trying to figure out. Information was given that the median salary of the Radnor teachers is a little over $101,000, and what will be added on additional to that for their benefits. On the financial reports under the consent agenda item 10.2, there were, again, this month, there were no summary pages as to the financial summary pages for the revenues and expenses on the monthly basis. Those were helpful, and I would review them every month, and I know there were several others who would do that rather than looking at each individual line entry of the information that's given us. Have those been eliminated? I notice they are not, again, in tonight's attachments. Request for board approval of student trips. How is the decision, and this is consent agenda item number 12. There are a list of travel dates for school events, most of them being sports events, of which some are a cost to the student, some a cost to the district. And my question, as has been in the past, still is, how is the decision to pay/contribute to some trips and not to others? Since the policy committee has turned over responsibility for writing a policy to address how decisions are made to the finance committee, my question is, when will the finance committee be addressing that so that we will get an idea on just exactly what goes into this decision-making process? The costs range from anywhere from no cost to a cost of $1,000 for the cost to the district for some of these trips. And just something for those of us who of which there, I believe, are many in the school district, print off the agenda to review it and the attachments in our new Board Docs program. First, thank you to Michael Petiti for having an information session for us earlier this past week. But the pages that come out for personnel categories are not numbered, and it was tough trying to collate them after printing, unless you caught each one coming off. And the other, for those of us who print, is the print command for the main agenda. You cannot print every other page. So thank you, Michael. If you'll address those, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Spurtle. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Doug Novak. I'm a teacher at Radnor Elementary School, and I just wanted to come forward and thank the board members also for their hard work on this 5-year extension, proposed 5-year extension, right? I've been in the district for 13 years now, and I've been involved and part of some difficult negotiations, sleepless nights, stress, and unfortunately, sometimes that impacts my ability to do my job. So with the proposed 5-year extension, it does give a lot of stability to all of us so that we can do our jobs, and that's why we're here. So I just wanted to say thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Novak. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Erica Benedict, RTEA rep from Radnor High School, and I also wanted to come and say thank you to all of you for the proposed contract extension. In the words of a union member, we felt punked when we heard about it because it was such good news and it was so surprising. It was just such a relief, honestly, to hear that this had been put out on the table, and honestly, it just spoke so much respect between you as board members and us as union members. I grew up in TE and I went to Conestoga. I graduated from Conestoga, and over the past 5 years that I've been in Radnor, I've wondered if the opportunity would arise if I would go back to Conestoga, because loyalty means something to me and I have siblings that are still in the district. But I can say, and take this even out of the context of the current climate over there, that if this does become the new normal in Radnor, if this is the way that we interact as a board and as a union, I would never have a reason to leave. And I feel that many other young teachers who are in my same boat would never have a reason to leave Radnor. So we appreciate the respect that you've given us, and we hope that will continue in the future. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Benedict. Paul, welcome.
Thank you, David. Paul Wright, representing here as one of the chief negotiators. I bring good wishes from our entire union, and I want to say to the board, to the community at large, and to our membership, we are very happy this evening, and I'm really excited that all of us were able to play such an active role in this. From early conversations where we weren't sure how this would go. I mean, they were good breakfasts, but they were, little else early on. And I think there was some very dogged belief on both sides that this was something that could happen. And given the earlier climate in certain personalities, I think it was a real compliment to everybody here that this was able to happen. Ken, you were certainly a welcome addition to the district and to the team, and I think that the board saw in you someone that they could trust, and so that meant a lot to us when we sat down at the table. And Dave, we certainly appreciate you carving a trail, knowing that you had the support of the entire board. I do want to thank our entire union for its support, and a lot of them will say, well, we didn't know this was going on. But that was always something that was at the forefront of our considerations throughout the summer. And to the community, I say our goal through this entire process was to maintain the level of education that we believe we offer. And I can say that as a graduate of this school district. I can say that as someone whose mother still proudly lives in this school district and helps pay my salary. This is something that we knew would benefit all of us, and we are very glad for this opportunity. And so, again, my thanks to all of you, and my thanks to all the members of the RTEA. Here is hoping that this is a new day. Thank you all.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for all you did in this process as well. Thank you. Hey, Rob.
Good evening. Rob King, history teacher at the high school, social studies teacher at Radnor High School. And I just wanted to come before the entire board gathered here to offer my thanks and reiterate the comments you've heard. So I was somewhat involved in this process, and I have to say that I've been involved in these negotiations for about 8 years, and how far we've come in the past 8 years to stand here, comfortably speaking before you all without all the stress, anxiety, and frustration, and to truly believe that I think we do have a new day. This is a new dawn, and I really hope that we can continue to work together for the good of this district. It is a wonderful district. It's a district. I went to this school as well. My mother lives right up the hill behind here and keeps tabs on me. My grandfather graduated from this district back in 1930, so I feel a deep connection to this district and a deep sense of pride, and having been entrusted to work in this district is something I take seriously, and I'm happy that we could work together. And thank you to the board, and in particular thank you to Dave Falcone, who was I think a partner in this endeavor with the help of Ken Batchelor, and thank you to the board for trusting them in what they were trying to do with us. And I'd like to thank my entire union for also trusting what we were doing to get to this moment. And we really hope to be able to continue to do the good things to serve the students and families in this community. It is a special place. So again, thank you very much.
Thanks, Rob. Thank you for all you did in the process as well. Dave. What's happening?
How are you? They bring me up to be the negative one.
Yeah, right.
Just kidding. I really, they're saying about they like the nor. I'd rather go back to the adversarial thing. It's just more fun for me. I'm going to have to go home and yell at Maya, and we know how well that'll go for me. See how that does. So, I think there are a couple things that come to mind as I do this. One of the board members up here, and they know who they are, but I don't want to call them out publicly, gave me a book last year to read called The Speed of Trust. And I think in reading that book throughout the summer, when teachers have time to read things that we want to read, other than great student writing, the book talked about exactly what I think we've started to establish here in this district, and it will go to benefit students, and I think that's why we're all here. And sometimes it gets lost in translation, and I think that has happened at times for both sides, and I think we're moving forward in a positive direction. We would like to see Mr. Batchelor have an opportunity, which he's being given for 5 years, with a clean slate to move forward with a board that is ready to work with him. And I think that's what we have here. And so to the board members that are here, we hope you're here for 5 additional years. We hope that Mr. Batchelor doesn't leave us after a year because he's mad at us. I think he's in for the long haul too. And as we know, teachers will be here for the period of time. And I think what you've heard tonight is that we have members of RTEA that are planning on staying that may have otherwise looked at other avenues. And I think that says a lot for what's going on here and the trust that we're establishing and continuing to have grow. So thank you very much to the board.
Thanks, Dave. Any other public comment? I'll just say one thing on the negotiations, and I was sorry to not mention it earlier, but the team that we worked with, J.J. Lemon, Mike McBride, Paul Wright, and Rob King, were really exceptional during that process and made it very easy to have the discussions that we had. So we are very grateful for their willingness and their participation in this discussion. It would not have been possible without all 4 of those gentlemen. So thank you very much. So next we will move on to our priority discussion action. We have the first item of business is our collective bargaining agreement. The recommended action is that the terms of the collective bargaining agreement between Radnor Township School District and the Radnor Township Education Association for the period from September 1, 2018 to August 31, 2023 is hereby ratified by the Radnor Township Board of School Directors, and the president of the board is hereby authorized to sign the agreement for the board. Is there any board discussion on this, or do I have a motion?
So moved.
A second? Any discussion from the board?
I would like to just say thank you as well to everyone involved. We are very appreciative of the work that was put in on both sides. I want to acknowledge that we had a core team. Dave and Ken Batchelor were in the room most of the time, but they were backed up by a team of additional board members. Patty Booker, who is not here this evening and is chairman of our finance committee, Susan Stern, who is here, and Mike Miller, who is here. And of course, the rest of us were also actively engaged. So I just want to make sure that you understand that this was a full board effort. I'd like to say that the teachers asked and we responded. And the clear communications that characterized our discussions throughout were really important to this process. They heard us and we heard them. And when you can talk with that element of trust that Dave just acknowledged, you can make a lot of progress. We are very appreciative that it was a collegial agreement well received by the union, and we appreciate that the focus in Radnor is going to be on education and not on contract negotiations and other issues over the next 5 years. We compare favorably to our neighbors to the east and to the west. And we do hope that they resolve their issues quickly, but we are so pleased that we are in this new place, and I do thank everyone involved.
Dave, Mr. Falcone, it's come up a couple of times, this question about the what's the cost of the benefits. And I believe that the terms of the contract are all online, correct? I mean, it's unfortunate. I know Michelle's not able to be with us tonight.
The tentative agreement is online.
But I mean our current collective bargaining agreement, so that if someone wanted to know, for instance, we know what the average teacher salary is. I think it was stated earlier, it's around 99 or 101,000, something like that. That is a reflection of the number of teachers in the union who are at step 15. So it's skewed a little high because at this point in time we have a very experienced, and gratefully so, core group of teachers. And then, so if the public wanted to know that, it's really just a case of looking at the current CBA and reading the agreement of what is the copay or what's the cost sharing on the part of the employee for the health care, and then to understand that for any employee, we have the cost of Medicare and Social Security and PSBA on top of their salary. It's a math calculation. It's not anything that's not able to be determined from the information we have available on our website, correct?
I believe so, and I'll let Mr. Stitzel chime in as well. I see his light on.
I know that question has come up, and I'm fairly confident that that information is actually available on our website, even if it's not spelled out in exactly those terms. Those are the components. It's salary, payroll expenses, and the cost of health care minus what the employees contribute, which is all spelled out in the CBA, correct?
Yes, if you go onto our website under departments, you'll see human resources. You'll also see a link to collective bargaining agreements. All of them are listed on there. And if you want to see what the health care costs, there is a health plan description link that will take you, and there you can click on the health care premiums for 2017-18. So you'll see what everything costs the district for every plan we have.
I mean, okay, so it's all public information. All that being said, I've done the math. And the average teacher salary with the PSBA and our cost for healthcare comes to approximately $155,000 for the average employee. As long as it was all public information, I was happy to do the math for the public who was asking. And in the world of teachers, I feel grateful to pay that, and I'm really happy that we have a contract and that we have 5 years. I mean, I understand that means that we will have to look carefully at our expenses and we have to anticipate tax increases, but, we value education here in Radnor, and I'm certainly happy to support that.
Thank you. Any other board?
Yeah. I just have one question. Do we receive reimbursement for half of the PSBA's contribution and Social Security from the state?
I know we receive half of PSBA's, but I cannot comment.
A percentage of
Social Security.
So that would be the all-in cost, but not necessarily the cost that we would.
Correct. They asked for the cost for the employee. Yes, we do get a credit back from the state for half of the PSBA's cost. So depending on the employee, you're right. Thank you, Chuck, for reminding me of that.
Well, I just like to chime in, which I usually don't. But I know I usually don't. I save my witty comments for committee. It's the smaller audience. I'd like to thank the union for approaching us, and Dave and I had some good meetings with them this summer, and I'm glad we got 5 years, because one of the mysteries that I've never been able to solve my entire life back when my parents were on the board was why it's always 3. Because I have friends that teach in other districts, and it's like you spend 1 year negotiating, 1 year getting used to it, the next year getting ginned up for the next year's fight. So the 5 years, I'm grateful for that. Also because, if I serve 1 term, I won't have to do this again. And we all get to give Ken a couple years of peace here. And I'd just like to say, I really appreciate the trust that Dave, Mike, and all the rest of the crowd has shown to us, because, I've known some of these guys for a long time, almost 30 years. And, it just shows what happens when people who trust each other speak the truth to each other, and you can get it done. So thanks, guys.
So I just want to reflect on this a little bit. This is my 3rd contract negotiation that I've been involved in. It's always been my belief in this community that the people in Radnor appreciate and actually demand quality education. And I think that reflects a value of this community. And I think what we saw this time was the majority of the people involved in this process were putting the best interests of the community and our education system ahead of their own maybe personal or other agendas. But I want the public to know that I think this has been a process. And I think that maybe everyone involved in this has learned something through the years about this, because I've seen a change on people's positions. And I think that's growth, and that's really healthy. And so I think that brought us to where we are, and I'm really happy for our community that that's where we are. So thank you to everybody.
I'll add in support of everything that's been said, that I think that in any organization, negotiations aren't easy. They're not supposed to be easy. People are coming at negotiations from different perspectives, with different interests initially. But I think in this process, the one thing that everybody kept their eyes on was creating a certain kind of environment and process around this that would be healthy and would lead to a culture that everybody could thrive in, particularly our students. Morale is so important to an organization, and sometimes you have big hurdles around morale, but healthy organizations keep that at the forefront of their minds and their agendas. And so I was really honored to be a part of this, a small part. I was not on the negotiating team, but it was an honor to be part of something that was happy and productive and pleasant. It was tough, but it was still, again, all with the best of intentions, and it brought out everybody's best selves. So our students really gain when our teachers are happy, and our whole community gains when we feel like we've done the best to balance the interests to the best of our ability, with everything to do with what we're charged with, is to create the best educational experience we can for the residents of this community. So, because everybody benefits, not just the students. So, again, I'm honored to be a part of it. It's been a wonderful thing to watch, and the comments from the teachers tonight and the board members are really inspiring. So, thank you.
So we had a motion and a second. So I believe this is a roll call vote. Todd, you'll call it?
Yes. Ms. Bonneberger?
Absolutely, yes.
Ms. Goldman?
Yes.
Mr. Madden?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Solomon?
Yes.
Ms. Stern?
Aye.
Vice President Michelson?
Yes.
President Falcone?
Yes.
8-0.
Terrific. Our next item on the agenda Our next two deal with an issue with which I will need to recuse myself. So I will turn the meeting over to Mrs. Michelson.
Good evening. This concerns a refinancing of the district's variable note. And for the introduction, I'd like to invite up Zach Williard and his team to give a brief 30,000-foot, please, explanation to the board and to the community.
Okay, thank you. Zach Williard, I'm with PFM, we're your independent financial advisor. Also with me is Mike Lillies, Dan O'Brien from RBC Capital Markets, and Tim Fry and Morgan Haas from Saul Ewing. Sure. So we have a yellow handout in front of you. The 30,000-foot view is that this has been in front of Finance Committee now 3 times over the summer, and really this dates back a number of years. What we're talking about here is your series of 2000 note, which is a variable rate note, which has been outstanding for 17 years, okay? Going back a number of years, it was always a desire of the district that if the financing team ever saw an opportunity in the future where long-term fixed interest rates were starting to collide with where the variable rate that you're receiving on your note, that you'd like to be contacted so that we can talk about, does it make sense at that time to take your variable rate note and refinance it into a fixed rate note, okay? So that process started earlier this year. We've gone through that all summer now. So before you tonight, there are 2 action items, okay, which Tim Fry is going to explain in a second, and they're also in your handouts. But step 1 of this 2-step plan, which we're using, which is in order to get better interest rates on the transaction, would be to lock in a fixed rate of a 199 with TD Bank on approximately $9.8 million of the total $15 million that's outstanding on your 2000 variable rate note, okay? So that is before you tonight. You can take action, and that will be all locked up. Step 2 is what we call a maximum parameters resolution, which we've used at the district in the past many times, okay? And what that does is it allows you to take action tonight, although we cannot legally lock in that interest rate for at least 15 days, which will be October 12th, and Tim can explain that's for tax law purposes. That rate right now is estimated at about 1.74%, okay? And that would clean up the refinancing of the 2000 Del Val note, and it would take away any future interest rate risk that the district has for that note. So I know you've all seen this plenty of times. It's a 30-page handout, so I'm not going to go through it unless you have any specific questions. But I think this is, a nice opportunity, and happy to answer any.
Could I just ask one clarification? Sure. I think you said $8 million. On here it says $9,810,000.
Yeah. So step 1, which is the first resolution, that's the Series A of 2017. That new par amount will be $9,810,000, which I think is reflected in the resolution. Again, that's step 1. And then step 2, the par amount will approximately be $5,075,000. And again, when you add the 2 together over this 2-step process, that will refinance the full 2000 note. Tim.
I'm Tim Fry.
Welcome, Tim.
Thank you. I put a copy of each resolution in front of you. And step 1 that Zach was referring to is $9,810,000. We're locking that in today. The interest rate's 1.99. It goes to TD Bank. That's a done deal. And you'll notice that's under $10 million. And that allows us to sell it to them on what's called a bank-eligible basis. And that is a tax law feature that makes the bond attractive to the bank, and therefore they give you an attractive rate, and I think you got a very attractive rate. Now that tax benefit is available to issuers that don't issue more than $10 million bank eligible in a year. Now we have got almost $15 million to pay off this note. So we are authorizing the second piece, step 2, in the parameters resolution. And you'll see the resolution says $5,145,000. It cannot exceed that. the interest rate cannot exceed 2%. There's various parameters in here. There is the option that you could offer it in a public offering with RBC, with an official statement, and sort of like your standard bond issue. But that authorization also includes the school district determining to sell it in the form of a bank loan, private placement, again, at what is expected to be TD Bank, at what is expected to be a rate of 1.74.
Not to exceed.
Those are not locked in today because the federal tax law says you can't have a sale for 15 days from today. And I think that day is October 12th. And on that day, what I expect will happen is that RBC will deliver an addendum to their note purchase agreement that says, here's the bank loan from TD, and here's the interest rate. And at that point, we will be locked in. And both pieces, both notes, will settle on November 1st, and the proceeds will immediately be applied to discharge the 2000 note, so that they don't even overlap by a single day. And at that point, your interest will be fixed. Most of it at 199. The second piece at something not to exceed 2%, and we think it's going to be 1.74, but we'll know better 15 days from now. And we think that that is the optimal structure for you to incur debt and fix out this variable piece of your debt. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
So, I'm sorry, back to my original question. Did I mishear you when you said 8 million?
I think you did.
Okay, you said 9,800,000.
9.8.
Got you. And one other question, how did we choose TD Bank?
We went through a competitive RFP process, and TD was the low bid.
And how many people bid on it?
6 or 7.
We vetted this through the finance committee.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was a point that we didn't have our committee reports, but the finance committee has gone through this now in 2 rounds with Zach and Mike Lillis, and we were unanimous in our recommendation that we go forward with this. I also want to point out that the choice we have elected to make with a slightly lower interest rate is one that will not allow this particular refinancing to be refunded, but both on the advice of our business manager, Michelle Deco, and our internal gut feel on the committee, we felt that this made more sense for our district than to go with one that could be refunded, because we just felt that the odds of that ever happening were slim.
There's a make whole. It's called a make whole. You can actually refund it and pay it off. But depending on what the market was, if rates go lower and you wanted to save money, you couldn't do that because the make whole premium you'd have to pay would suck all the benefit out. So that in this case, the lender is protected against the market move, and you would expect to leave this in place until its maturity.
Okay.
All right, any further questions on the part of the board? Then I think, looks like we do this in 2 motions. So the approval right now is to accept the TD Bank bid lock rate for the $9.8 million piece, which has been indicated is at 1.99%. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Oh, no, this is roll call,
Is this roll
Susan.
call also? Oh, sorry, I missed that. Yep.
Ms. Bonneberger,
Yes.
Ms. Goldman,
Yes.
Mr. Madden,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Aye.
Mrs. Solomon,
Yes.
Ms. Stern,
Aye.
Vice President Michelson.
Yes.
7-0.
And then, does Dave have to officially abstain?
He's recused because of the involvement of his employer, Saul Ewing.
No, I know
So,
that. I think that's actually an abstention. He abstained?
Yeah, he should, and I think we can note it for him, that he has abstained because of the conflict with his
Yeah, no, it's all
employer.
union. It's just, I think it's an abstention, Todd, and he'll have to
7.
sign that form.
701.
Right.
Okay, thank you. And then the second resolution, the parameters resolution, which authorizes the second component in 14 days, and we are authorizing a 2% maximum interest rate, although the expectation is it will be 1.74% for the remaining portion, 5.145 million. And I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Stitzel?
Roll call. Ms. Bonneberger.
Yes.
Ms. Goldman.
Yes.
Mr. Madden.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Aye.
Ms. Solomon.
Yes.
Ms. Stern.
Aye.
Vice President Michelson.
Yes.
701.
Thank you. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Appreciate your patience and your skill here. Thank you.
I don't think our finance committee meetings would be the same without seeing you guys 3 times in a row.
As we wait for Mr. Falcone to return, I do want to note there was food outside, so maybe that's why he recused himself. But
We're at 7.4, Dave.
As we move to the next item on the agenda, I just did want to mention that the administration is in a practice now of all questions that are asked at any board meeting, that, as Mr. Falcone mentioned, we will be responding to those questions within the month, at the next month's meeting. However, this month, what we tried to do was the questions were answered at individual committees. So questions that were asked at individual both board meetings and committees were answered by those administrators at particular committee meetings, and we will try to do that as much as possible as well, to have those answers either at the committee meeting, the following committee, or the following month's board meeting, those that haven't got answered at a committee meeting.
Thank you. So next, we have our PSBA 2018 elections. Procedures for election of PSBA officers as authorized in the bylaws requires that each member entity cast 1 vote during the election period from August 24th, 2017 to October 12th, 2017. It says Michelle Decal, as board secretary, will be casting the vote for the board, though I'm not sure if that's necessarily accurate. Perhaps it will be Mr. Stitzel, but we'll address that when necessary. The board will need to decide by majority vote which candidates will receive the board's vote for each office. The slate of candidates for 2018 PSBA officers and at-large representatives are as follows. For president-elect, we have David Hutchinson from State College area, or Otto W. Voigt, the third from Eulenberg School District. I'll open up to the board if there is any recommendation from the board or discussion on this position.
I would like to recommend that we vote for David Hutchinson after reviewing the information provided last week to us regarding their qualifications.
Does anybody else have a discussion or recommendation on this vote? The next, we will vote at the end, but we'll go through each of the positions. Vice President would be Eric Wolfgang from Central York School District or Gary Michael Smedley from Carbondale Area School District. Any thoughts on this position?
Again, I would like to recommend Gary Michael Smedley based on his qualifications as provided to us.
I would like to recommend Eric Wolfgang. I worked with him, did PSBA. He has been involved for a while. He's very knowledgeable, and I'm sure he would do a fantastic job.
Okay. Any further discussion on that position? There is only one for treasurer, Mike Gossert. I guess he's going to get the vote. PSBA Insurance Trust trustees, we get to vote for 2, and there are 2. So I guess there's no need for discussion there. So we'll go back. Todd, will you call the vote on this?
Well, Chuck, sorry. Do you have any thoughts on the president? Because are you our rep to them now, board? I mean, you do all the.
I am your rep to them, actually.
Yeah, you do a lot of the work with the feds and the state and all that. Do you know any of these guys?
I do, but I have a recommendation for the vice president.
What about the president?
I don't have one for the president at this point.
Are any of these folks incumbents? Do we know?
Well, the
I
gentleman.
would think that the president,
The gentleman I'm supporting is the current vice president of the organization.
but the president of the PSBA was actually the vice president, because the president resigned this year, as you recall, and he took his place. So he was moved up to become the acting president. So although if the, Mr. Ott, is it, is the acting vice president? Is that what you're saying? He's the vice president?
No, I'm saying Mr. Hutchinson is the current vice president, seeking the president-elect position.
Okay, so he may be, in fact.
Is he acting?
I think so.
Well, is he acting or filling out a prior role, or how
He's
would
the
you describe it?
He's the elected vice president.
Acting president.
I think.
Okay.
So at that point, I would go along with my learned colleague, Ms. Solomon.
But for vice president, you guys split.
Mike,
Can't go along every time.
Mike, I can say, I know the president of the school board for State College and something about that district, and I do believe that he is a respected member of that school board if it.
I think Mike's asking about the vice president, where
I'm sorry,
Eric,
I thought he was asking initially.
I was asking about the presidency, but then we moved on.
Oh,
Okay.
vice
I'm
president.
sorry,
Does anybody
my
know anything
notes.
about Otto Voigt? I don't know, I felt the same thing.
I believe he's run before for things.
I think that's right, Lydia. I remember seeing his name. Yeah.
So how do we
Just-
move
I would
forward?
just
We have
say-
to do each of these positions,
So,
a roll call
I
for
would just
every
say
one of
yes, it
them.
will be, and just administratively for future, we will make sure that we spend time at a committee meeting on this as well. So that way, board members, I know you've seen it and you have an opportunity to see who the candidates are, but we'll make sure in the future get it on a committee agenda as well, so you can spend a little more time.
The way that you'd move forward on this is that someone would need to make a motion and a second for one of the candidates for one of the positions, and then if that candidate, will receive the votes of the board, and then move through the positions that way.
So we do them one at a time, right?
That's right.
That's what I thought. Okay.
So I move that we support David Hutchinson for president-elect for
Second.
PSBA.
So we'll do roll call vote.
Roll call for selecting David Hutchinson for president. Ms. Bonneberger,
Abstain.
Ms. Goldman,
Yes.
Mr. Madden,
Yes.
Mr. Miller, Ms. Solomon,
Yes.
Ms. Stern,
Aye.
Vice President Michelson,
Yes.
President Falcone.
Yes.
7-0-1 abstention.
Is there a motion for vice president?
Yeah, I'd
Make a
like to-
motion, we support Gary Michael Smedley for vice president-elect of the PSBA.
Is there a second?
I'll second you because I liked him on paper.
All right. Todd, you want to call a vote?
Ms. Bonneberger,
No.
Ms. Goldman,
No.
Mr. Madden,
No.
Mr. Miller,
No.
Ms. Solomon,
Yes.
Ms. Stern,
Pardon me, no.
Vice President Michelson,
Yes.
President Falcone.
No.
5 yes, 2 no. I'm sorry, 5 no, 2 yes, 1 abstention.
Was there an abstention on that? No abstention.
Oh.
No, 2 yes.
6 no, 2 yes.
Right.
Sorry about that.
So is there a motion?
I move that we vote for Eric Wolfgang.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Stitzel.
Ms. Bonneberger.
Yes.
Ms. Golden.
Yes.
Mr. Madden.
Yes.
Ms. Michelson.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Ms. Solomon.
No.
Ms. Stern.
Yes.
President Falcone.
Yes.
7 yes, 1 no.
For treasurer, there is only one candidate. Do we need to, we have to go roll call on that as well?
I move that we move forward Mike Gossard.
I'll second.
Ms. Bonneberger.
I abstain.
Ms. Golden.
Yes.
Mr. Madden.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yep.
Ms. Solomon.
Yes.
Ms. Stern.
Aye.
Vice President Michelson.
Yes.
President Falcone.
Yes.
7-0 with 1 abstention.
Lastly, we have our PSBA insurance trustees, or trust trustees. So we can vote for 2. I would seek a recommendation for 2.
I move that we move forward a recommendation for Michael Fasanetto and Marianne Neal.
Second.
Ms. Bonneberger.
I abstain.
Ms. Golden.
Yes.
Mr. Madden.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Ms. Solomon.
Yes.
Ms. Stern.
Aye.
Vice President Michelson.
Yes.
President Falcone.
Yes.
7-0 with 1 abstention.
Thank you, Mr. Stitzel. Next, we have our reports from our board committees. Chairpersons of our committees may report at this time on items pertinent to the agenda or of general importance to board business. First, our curriculum committee report. Mrs. Michelson.
Yes, just very briefly, we had a fairly packed agenda. We discussed our K-12 enrollment and talked about that, noting that our class size concerns, particularly at Radnor Middle School, have been largely addressed with the scheduling that took place over the summer. And so it is a greatly improved situation than before. We are watching enrollment constantly and carefully. We looked at district goal number 4, Radnor Middle School Program Review Action Plan, and we will be proceeding with that. Dr. McQuiggan is going to be working with the Radnor Middle School administration, Principal Purnell, and the assistant principals in putting together an action plan to move Radnor Middle School forward. We also introduced the Sleep Start Time Action Plan. We will be putting together a committee to study this. We did not make any specific direction with regard to this, other than that under Dr. Rabarchik, we will be looking at it closely, and we will be hearing more about this as he pulls a team together to study and consider a very fully orbed review of the sleep issues and the attendant concerns. We also talked briefly about the technology integration going forward, and there will be more to hear on that later. Comprehensive plan update, and then the notion that board agenda items, our goal will be to review these things in committee prior to this meeting so that anything that shows up on the agenda will have been recommended or have been in front of a committee before we're hearing it here. And that's it.
Thank you. Next will be our Facilities Committee report. Mrs. Solomon.
Thank you. The Facilities Committee met on September 12th. There were 5 items on our agenda. The first was really just an informational item. Dan Bechtel came forward and informed us about 3 banners that will be displayed on the football field on the visitors' side. Our second item on the agenda was the facilities usage study. The administration wants to take their time, do a thorough job with this, and they are planning to report back to us in April or May with recommendations on changes or possibly what we're going to be doing with that. The third item on the agenda was discussion of the Radnor High School, Radnor Middle School wrestling mats and lifts for the mats. And it was concluded that the money in the capital budget will be used for the Radnor Middle School mats first. And I'm under the impression that the high school, in particular Mr. Bechtel, was very gracious in recognizing that the middle school needed the upgrade in their mats more than the high school. So there again, it's a matter of Radnor working together for the best results for students. The fourth item on the agenda was the announcement of the Radnor High School courtyard ceremony. The ribbon cutting ceremony was on September 18th. I went to that. It was really an example for adults on how to get things done. These kids came to the facilities. They're not kids. These intelligent students came to the facilities committee sometime in the spring with an idea. I have to also give a shout out to their faculty sponsor, Kathy Pearsall. And they had a plan what they wanted to do. They raised the money for it. They worked through the complex channels of, what people's different opinions were. They got the project done over the summer, and they had a ribbon cutting in September so the students can enjoy it all year long. So there again, hats off to our Radnor students. And the fifth item on the agenda was just an update on the summer projects that were completed in the schools, which include windows at West, the propane tank at the bus depot, flooring at Radnor High School, a wall, I believe, was added at Ithan Elementary School, and locks, and flooring at Radnor Middle School for the stage, and also Radnor High School auditorium and gym floor. And I think that's it for facilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Finance Committee, Mrs. Michelson.
We've already covered the two of the big items, the refinancings and the RTEA agreement. The only other items that we talked about were, we got an update on the collection of our local effort real estate taxes. Out of $74.8 million, we have already collected $61.8 million in the discount period, which is 82%, and that is consistent with collections from last year. So that's quite good. And then we had an update on substitute usage, and we will be continuing to monitor that as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Policy Committee, Ms. Stern.
Yes, the Policy Committee met on September 12th, and you'll see in your consent agenda items 13.1 and 13.2. We have policies 121, which is curriculum-related field trips, and policy 210, use of medications, on the agenda for second approval. We also had a brief discussion that a number of cross-referencing issues will be addressed by next month's meeting, and we'll have a review of that. And our next meeting will be October 10th. Thank you.
Thank you. GRCC.
Our committee met on September 12th, and we covered a few things. We talked about our 5th annual legislative breakfast, to which the board is invited on October 20th at 7:45 in the morning at the Radnor High School Library, I believe. That is being coordinated by Kevin Kane and Michael Petiti, and our local representatives will be there to have a conversation with us, as has become our tradition. We also reviewed the 2016-17 committee goals we set, and Mr. Petiti presented a PowerPoint of how we had met each of those goals over the course of the year. We also talked about the 2017-18 proposed goals. We'll revisit them in October for official approval by our committee because we were a little shorthanded. But we have talked about what the work we'd like to do for this current school year. We also talked about something that had been on our June agenda, which we didn't get to cover because the meeting was canceled, but those were proposed changes to the school code bill that might accompany a revenue plan But here it is, almost October. There's still no revenue plan. So these changes are still just in the proposal stage, but they were interesting ones to watch. The other thing we talked about was what Mr. Batchelor had referred to earlier this evening, which is dealing with the ballot referendum question that could pave the way for property tax elimination legislation that we had opposed during the last school year officially. And I just wanted to ask the board at this point if they have any questions. You all got in your packets the communication plan that we have worked on to let our community know about this ballot referendum question and to inform them what, how the question reads and why we are encouraging people to vote no. So we'd like to move forward with that campaign, but we'd like to hear from any board members who might have thoughts or questions, comments. I'll take that as
I serve on this committee, so I've heard all this. And I think it's really important we come forward as a unified bipartisan voice that informs people that this would absolutely be a game changer in Radnor. It would take away local control with regard to almost everything, because finances would then all go through Harrisburg and then be divvied out. So it would absolutely remove our ability to have local decision-making with regard to finance. That's where it's headed. And so I just think it's critical that we just let people know that for Radnor, because of our tax base being funded by property taxes to such a high extent, we're in a really different position to a lot of districts in the state that are kind of like, doesn't matter to us. It matters to us in Radnor.
I actually am going to take a slightly different position on that, in that what we saw in the budget impasse a few years ago is that districts that are dependent, highly dependent on any state funding were held hostage. They were held hostage for their state funding. They were actually held hostage on their federal and their IDEA pass-through money because of the budget impasse. And so regardless of the amount of funding that we get from the state, currently, if we turn over the funding of the local school districts to be channeled through the state, every single school district in the state would be at risk of having, up to 100% of their budget held hostage if there is a future budget impasse. And I don't think that there was anybody who really ever thought that we could have a 9 or a 10-month budget impasse, but in fact we did. And so, that for me, Lydia, it's I think any district is at risk. But I agree with you. We need to be very proactive in this, and I think that to the extent that we, I think, have bipartisan agreement on this, we should be very unified in our message so that people have a clear understanding of, the detriment this would be to local control of a school district for any town.
Yes, and honestly, I agree. I have, as this kind of concern has surfaced over the last several years in different forms, I have spoken out against it every time for the same reasons that we've just expressed. It will be horrendous for Radnor Township and for our schools. And our commitment here on this board is first and foremost to the well-being of our school district and our students and our teachers and our schools. And so for anybody who shares that ethic, this has to be a vote no. And there really, in my view, is not a prevailing counterargument that is stronger than that. Thank you.
So just for anybody who's watching and maybe didn't catch the beginning, just as a reminder, there were many, many members of our community who supported our February 2017 resolution about Senate Bill 76. And what we'd like them to know is that this is another way for the legislature, this ballot question is another way for the legislature to accomplish Senate Bill 76. Amend this bill, and this ballot question is designed to amend the Constitution so that that kind of thing that the other members of the board were talking about can occur. So we really encourage everybody not just to vote no, but to please tell all of your friends and neighbors and anyone who lives in the community. And by the way, this is on the ballot throughout the state of Pennsylvania. So if you have people who live in places other than Radnor Township, please let them know that this is going to be for most school districts, all school districts, but most school districts, very, very perilous. We will have serious cash flow problems if just a year like this year, where there are districts already with the impasse of passing the budget, the revenue plan. There are school districts who are not getting their funds already, and we don't want to be in that situation. So you will see this campaign, I believe, roll out, Mr. Petiti, starting tomorrow.
I believe there's a list here of when the information is going to be disseminated, and it was contingent upon the board making sure that things were on the up and up with the plan. So, assuming that's the case, we'll move forward, as soon as possible.
Wait, where is that plan in our information here?
Yeah.
I know, but where?
It's in board. It was sent in your board packet on Friday
In the leadership update.
in the leadership update.
Okay.
One of the other things about this plan that most people don't realize is if you're the last time they had a budget impasse like this, other districts had to borrow money to make payroll and operations. The state pays when the state budget gets passed. You get the principal back, but a lot of the state didn't pay the interest on the loans. So when the jokers in Harrisburg can't get their stuff together to pass a budget on time, the districts are left with the interest on the loans they had to take out because those guys couldn't do their job.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
In all fairness, we do have to look at this. What one of the reasoning, one of the rationale that the legislatures have for this is to give them the ability to tax homesteads differently than they tax everything else. That will be if this is passed, then that would then allow the Constitution to be changed in that manner. And if you recall, there could be a shift from the homesteads to possibly commercial and other types of properties, and that would allow them to do that. That's just one of the tools that they would be allowed to do. Now, this is not Act 76. This has overwhelmed, this has, I believe, the most support that I have ever seen for this resolution in the Senate and the House right now, okay? And some people may say that's because the state wants to have control over our monies. That's a possibility, but I'm just throwing this out there, that if you look at some of the specifics in Act 76, the monies that would be collected through the increase in your sales tax and taxing more items, and also your income tax that you would pay, right? That money would go into a separate fund. It wouldn't go into the general fund, and it wouldn't come out of the general fund. They would not be allowed to touch that money. So that money would then go in there, right? Now, what happens when next year would come, okay, for us? If we need to raise more money, we need to raise our taxes. Some of the theory behind this is if wages go up, then the amount of money that the schools will get will also go up, okay? Because it's based on the money that you're going to be spending, and it's based on your income tax, okay? So if they go up. So there's a lot more to this than I think just say no. But that said, for the resolution, not Act 76, okay? At this point, I'm not prepared to say to vote no for the resolution. I'm not. That's all.
As much as I appreciate your
fuzzy math,
your math, and your presentation, Chuck, I would just say that this is, this is a backdoor to get closer to that goal, and as a consequence, we should do what we can to shut it hard, because we will be hurt.
Right. That's fine.
Thank you.
Okay, so just to wrap.
Do we need a motion on this? I'd like to move that we do this. Is that where we're headed, or what? So we're doing this. What?
She's just giving a committee report.
I know, I'd
Certainly,
like to
this-
be more aggressive about this early on. We don't have a lot of time.
Sure. This is
So-
this is a committee report to,
Okay.
and the committee had decided coming out of committee to move in this direction. Certainly, it's not on the agenda, and I'll look to Mr. Kostofko. A board member could make a motion that we want to proceed in this direction with that. I mean,
Yes.
that is possible. I'll yield to both the president and Mr. Kostofko.
Yeah, I think that would be more appropriate, though, at new business rather than now.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion, and I will hold it for new business, that we move forward with your plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Wrapping up really quickly, our fifth agenda item was one of the priority projects that Mr. Batchelor identified for us for this school year was strategic communications, and so Mr. Petiti gave us a very thorough report on the outcome of the surveys he's done to date on the state of communications for the district and changes that he's made to communications as a result of that. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday, October 10th at 7 o'clock.
Thank you, Mrs. Goldman. Next, we'll move to our consent agenda, and although board action is required, it is generally unnecessary to hold discussion on these items. With the consent of all members, they are therefore grouped, and approval is given in one motion. In the event a board member wants to discuss any item, the board president will move it to an appropriate place on the agenda. Are there any board members who would like to pull items from the consent agenda?
Yes, I'd like to pull 12.3 and number 14.
12.3 and 14. Any other items? Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda, less items 12.3 and 14.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? Item 12.3.
I just want to clarify, and I guess technically it's going to happen tonight or after tonight, but in the wording for request for board approval for student trips, we will want to change the recommended action with the word changing that we now have for the policy on field trips, because that's not actually what we say now about conditions for going on a trip. We now say that the superintendent has the right to cancel a trip if in their interest. So the recommended action, we need to adjust it. I don't know if that'll come forward after tonight, because technically tonight's when you guys just approved our policy for field trips. So technically, it's the new wording about approving field trips has changed. So the recommended action just needs to be adjusted. So I'm just pulling this to say I would like to approve these trips. I'd like to make a motion to approve these trips, and that we will insert as a matter of record that the wording would match what our new policy says. Correct.
I see no problem with that. I'll second that motion. Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Item number 14.
Yeah, there was a typo in one of the employees' names, so I just wanted to make note that it's Charlene Mastro, not Charlize. And with that, I move that we approve the item number 14.
Is there a second?
Second.
To change it?
To change it to Charlene, it's the wrong name listed in the agenda.
So it's, we have a motion and a second to approve the amended number 14. All those in favor? Any opposed? 9-0. Next, we will move to reports from our board liaisons. Delaware County Community College.
Yes, Delaware County Community College, as you know, has a new president. Jerry Parker retired last year after a really distinguished tenure in charge of that organization. They are holding a ceremony to rename. What are they renaming? One of the buildings. Oh, the Advanced Technology Center. Sorry. in honor of Dr. Parker, and that will take place on Friday, October 6th at 9 a.m. And then there's a whole agenda of activities that will occur. So if anybody wants to attend that, I wanted you to be aware of that. And I also want to invite everyone, you should have received your invitation in the mail. The Delaware County Community College hosts a dinner every year for the school board members of the sponsoring districts. It's a really nice event, and I really recommend it to you this year because they have a new president. I haven't met her either, so it would be really nice if Radnor had a nice showing to welcome her to her new position. So that will be on October 25th. I think it starts at 6 o'clock with appetizers, and so please consider coming. Thanks.
Thanks, Lydia. DCIU. So anybody want to offer a report in her stead? Seeing none, the Federal Relations Network.
I'm sorry. No report.
The IU Legislative Council, PSBA.
Yeah, we spent a little bit of time on PSBA, but we do have our annual meeting coming up October 18th, I think we start, 18th, and I'll be back for the 20th, which is our legislative breakfast.
Okay, thank you. Parks and Rec.
Yes, just quickly, a couple of weeks ago, we had the grand reopening of Clem-McCrone Park. So if you have not had the pleasure of seeing this beautiful spot in Radnor, I encourage you to get out there. You can look ahead. The next big one is going to be at Fenimore Woods. And our committee also reviewed all the other parks and planned upgrades, although they will be at a lesser level. Want to make the report that the Willows has received $1 million grant over 3 years, and for 3 phases, and keep up online with that. And then finally, the fall activities and events guide is out and available. It's chock full of activities for children and families. And I will specifically highlight the 40th annual Radnor Run on October 29th, which I believe is a Sunday morning. So that's it.
There will be no report for PTO PSA coordinating meeting. Radnor Educational Foundation, Radnor Alumni Council.
I have no report.
Thank you. Radnor High School Scholarship Fund.
Yes, I just wanted to let you know that in October you'll be receiving your annual campaign appeal letter for the Radnor High School Scholarship Fund, so please be on the lookout for it and give generously. They are a great organization that support upwards of 30 students each year for scholarships ranging from $6,000 to $8,000 total, and it's a really great group, and they will need your financial support.
Thank you. Radnor Page.
No report.
Radnor Committee for Special Education.
I would just like to thank the board and the board leadership for making the Radnor Committee for Special Education, bringing it up to this level and having a liaison. I think it will benefit all of Radnor. And in the future, I will have a report. I don't have a report right now, but this push came from parents within Radnor schools. And I'd like to thank them for pushing this forward. Thank Kevin Kane for working on this and staying in tune and in touch with the special education needs of the Radnor schools. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have new business. Is there any new business from the board?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that because of the short time frame in getting information out and informing people, that we move forward on this proposed communication agenda, just alerting people of the importance of this. And so it actually has things happening this week, and I think that we need to support that, and we don't have a lot of time.
Second.
Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of...
Can I step in here for a second, Dave? Because this is a new item that wasn't previously published on the agenda, the board should open it up for public comment so that the public can comment before the vote takes place.
Great, thank you. Is there any public comment on this proposal? On the proposed action plan for the, we'll have another round of public. Hey, come on up, no, really. Right, this is just, we're going to do our full public comment on this one item, yes, before we take. Come on up, Cindy.
Cindy Spurl, my question is, this is so very important. Is there a way that the school district can work with the township in coordinating an effort to get to all of the citizens of the township?
We can certainly ask Mr. Petiti to reach out to township staff to see if there's a way to do that. Thank you. Any additional public comment on this specific motion? So seeing none, we can go to the vote. Again, so all in favor? Any opposed? That's 7-1. Thank you. Next, we have our board announcements. Any other new business? Board announcements. Our upcoming meetings. Our Facilities Committee meeting will meet on October 10th at 5 p.m. The Policy Committee meeting will meet on October 10th at 6 p.m. and GRCC will meet on October 10th at 7 p.m. All of those will be in the Administration Building ground floor conference room. On October 17th, the Curriculum Committee will meet at 5:30 and the Finance Committee will meet at 7 p.m. Our next regular board business meeting will be October 24th at 7 p.m. That will be here in the Radnor Township, Radnorshire room.
Sorry, I have a question. Why did we move the committee meetings on the 17th? I know there must be a logical reason.
That's going to be the new time. So it was in the...
People are having difficulty
Getting.
making the meetings, leaving from their work.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to public comment. Again, we'll ask anybody in the public who is interested to come forward. We would encourage that. We would remind you that if you have not already, please sign in at the back, and please keep your comments to 4 minutes per the board policy.
Good evening, Judy Sherry. Is this on? It is clear to me as a 16-year attendee and participant in most school board meetings that public participation has been a critical ingredient in determining many important policies, direction, and outcomes for the Radnor School District. Here are just a few major examples of issues where the public prevailed, often over objections by the board and administration. Keeping the middle school in Wayne, changing behind closed-door board liaison meetings to the open committee meetings that are now taped for future viewing, preventing artificial turf from placement on the middle school site, installing 3 artificial turf fields at the high school, instituting full-day kindergarten, implementing a citizens advisory committee to review financial decisions, and advocating for the current middle school evaluation and the sleep impact study taking place this year. And yet, despite this record, too often the public is treated in a dismissive, second-class manner, and its participation is eliminated altogether at the end of committee meetings when board members have not appropriately allocated enough time. The public is treated like an inconvenience and an obstacle to the board's ability to run efficient and effective meetings. Here's one example. This year, on April 25th, the board scheduled a budget workshop with public participation listed on the agenda. Because these budget decisions establish spending priorities, they are some of the most important ones made by the board. Members of the public arrived at the meeting with prepared comments for the board's consideration, and yet no one was permitted to speak. At the following meeting, Sue Stern stated, "We made an agreement as a board last month that the budget workshop would not have public comment. Maybe not all 9 of us agreed or disagreed, I don't even remember, but we all knew, and I made a request to this board that if the public was upset about that we would all agree that it was a decision of the board. And so it's just not setting right with me that Mr. Falcone keeps being singled out in that decision." It was not Mr. Falcone's individual decision, and our board was very well aware as an entire board that we were not going to be having public comment during the budget work session. No one on the board corrected Ms. Stern. When I did a right to know on May 31st requesting information about any meeting where the board decided to prohibit public participation at the budget workshop, the final response was, no records associated with a vote or other agreement by the board members pertaining to the decision to eliminate public comment from the April 25th workshop exist because there was no vote or other agreement by board members to eliminate public comment at the April 25th, 2017 budget workshop. So, there's a basic inconsistency between Ms. Stern's defense of Dave Falcone and the district's records. I still will continue to hold Mr. Falcone accountable for the elimination of public comment, since he is the president and is responsible for the agenda. If Ms. Stearns feels protective toward Mr. Falcone, that's fine, but it's important that the public be given the truth. We have an honor code for kids that at its core is based on telling the truth. The public often brings up things that the board is unaware of or issues that board members feel uncomfortable about bringing forward to the administration. Ms. Stern's statements, supported by the silence of the other board members, undermines the effectiveness of this school board. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment?
Mr. Falcone, may I speak? Because this has been...
Dr. Winters has some additional public comments.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me let Dr. Winters go.
Dr. Winters, welcome back.
Thank you. I would like to commend the board and this Teachers Association also at this time. I know it was earlier in the meeting for their contract agreement. Having been involved in a leadership role in the association, I know how taxing that can be, and this appears to be a win-win. And based on my experience, may I indicate that whenever, and I'm sorry, Mr. Falcone, this is not personal, nor of any other legal person in the room, but when stakeholders speak to each other without the intermediaries of lawyers, things sometimes go a little better.
I think I agree.
I think she personally. But from my experience, it seems to sometimes people have other agendas that may not be in either stakeholder's necessarily best interest. So just keep that in mind for future reference. I would also like to say that public participation is a thorny issue, and of course we like to have informed public participation, for which we have dealt with, and I know Ms. Spurl and I were on a committee and we hemmed and hawed about official meetings, workshop meetings, when public comment was allowed. It's a very complex issue. I think the idea is you would like to have the comments limited, on target, and we appreciate the fact that you're trying to answer the questions now. And I think there are many opportunities that have been provided to the public, and I think we can choose to listen and deal with them respectfully, or we can pretend that they are contentious. So I think it's a two-way street, and I think we're both working together to make it the best for the public. And I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I know it's a challenge. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Winters. Mrs. Spurtle. Sure.
Dr. Winters and I did work on a public participation policy subcommittee, and I would just like to express the feeling of someone who attends a lot of the meetings that it's still a contentious time between the board and the public. And the feeling is still there that you're just barely giving the public time to express their opinions. The public does work hard. There are members of the public for years that have followed the school board, their policies, their actions, and feel that the contribution that we're making for other members of the public who don't get up and stand here at the podium is a very important one. And I'm not at the point yet, like maybe Dr. Winters is, that I feel that the comments that are made from this podium are taken as being as important as the comments that you're making to the public behind this great big dais. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional public comment? Seeing none?
Okay. So, Mr. Falcone, I just wanted to clarify. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to jump in, just clarify
Sure.
one statement. I just wanted, often when we all hear statements made or different things are made, it's sometimes, if we don't clarify, we don't, fully understand the context. So I do want to be clear, on the night of the public budget meeting, that very night, there was 2 opportunities for public comment. I would say that administratively, we did not do a good job of advertising when that public comment was going to take place that evening. But I don't want people who are watching this to assume there was a budget hearing that night and there was no opportunity that evening for public comment. That evening, there was actually 2 opportunities for public comment. So I just want to make sure that to be clear. We did not, though, explain clearly how that was taking place, and in the future, we'll make sure we do that.
Great. So thank you. I'm going to take the time to listen to Mrs. Sherry's comments from tonight because I don't think that she accurately reflected what I actually said back in April, because I did listen to those comments from back at the budget meeting. But what I wanted to just clarify, so Mrs. Sherry knows this and everybody else knows this, when we receive our packet, I open it and I read it thoroughly and I read the agenda, and I could clearly see from the agenda that we were not scheduling public comment during the budget session. So when I made the statement in that meeting that we all knew we weren't having public comment, I made the assumption that my fellow board members all opened their packets and read the same agenda that I read, and that the 9 of us did not say anything at the beginning of the meeting, and to my knowledge, and I'm just saying to my knowledge, no one individually reached out, or 5 of us didn't reach out to individually express a concern about the agenda. That's how I came to believe that the board was well aware. So I apologize if I give the impression that this board had a discussion. We all know that we didn't have a discussion. We all got our packets. We all read our agendas. I assume everyone reads their agendas. And that is where I came to say that.
Thank you. So any other business? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Any second? All in
Second.
favor?
Good luck figuring out who.
Opposed? Seeing none. Good night.